In this video, we're going to be talking about how to think fast. And honestly, this is one of my favorite subjects because when I learned about the content that I'm going to teach you in this video, I was kind of blown away by the simplicity of the method and by the effectiveness of this method. I think that you're going to enjoy this method of thinking fast. I'm not sure if everyone will benefit from it because people learn differently. There are differences in the ways that students learn. So I found this method really helpful, and I think that most of you are also going to find this helpful. So take a look and then you can let me know what you think about it. So the method is actually called mind mapping. Now, maybe some of you have heard about it, but I actually heard about this just 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And the idea behind mind mapping is it kind of tries to emulate or imitate our natural way of thinking. So I want you to now imagine if you were to think about some idea. Let's say you're thinking about restaurants. Then what would you think if I was to mention the topic of restaurants? Imagine that you're just hanging out with your friends and you're just talking about what is the best restaurant. What things would come to your mind? I bet that there would be a little explosion going off in your mind. This explosion going off in your mind would look something like this. So you would have the topic of restaurant in the center because that's the topic that you're talking about. But then what would happen is your mind would branch out into all kinds of directions. And from that point, you will start to think about everything related to restaurants. You'll start to think about restaurants you like, restaurants you don't like. You'll start to think about why you like certain restaurants, why you don't like certain restaurants, and that branch is going to further branch out into more topics or into subtopics. And we can keep going here, see? From one topic to the next, and it kind of grows like the roots of a tree. You see, it's like a chain reaction. It grows. So you can take one topic and you can branch out in all directions and start to think about other topics related to that, and then branch out from that topic to even more topics. So I have an example for you here. So let's say that the examiner asks you a question. Hey, what do you do to stay healthy? So if you're talking about the topic of health, then the explosion in your mind or the chain reaction that happens in your mind might look something like this. Take a look at that. So at the center, you have the main topic, health, and then your mind is going to branch out into all directions and you'll start to think about how the environment affects your health, the physical state, how your genes affect your health, the food that you eat, the medicines that you take, and the spiritual condition. Or you can think of this as the emotional condition. So this topic of health gets subdivided into these topics here: environment, physical state, genes, food, medicine, spiritual or emotional condition. But then you see it doesn't stop there. Rather, it's only a starting point. Now, what you can do is actually you can focus on any one of these subtopics and you can let that grow. So let's say if you want to focus on the environmental aspects of health, then you might talk about the importance of fresh air, breathing fresh oxygen, living in an area surrounded by trees, and so on. If you are interested in the physical state, you might choose to talk about things like stopping smoking, or doing sports, or getting enough sleep. And of course, if you're talking about sports and let's say you're really passionate about sports, you don't have to stop there. You can let that grow further and further. So you can talk about all kinds of sports. You can talk about weightlifting, soccer, baseball, badminton, tennis, golf, whatever sport you like. Similarly, if you are interested in biology, you might choose to talk about the importance of genes. Or if you are interested in food, you might talk about the importance of eating fresh fruits and vegetables, getting plenty of water, and not abusing your body with alcohol. Or maybe you're studying to be a doctor, maybe you are studying medicine. And in that case, you can talk about vitamins and consultations with doctor and regular examinations and so on. Similarly, if you are interested in spiritual or emotional conditions, you can talk about the importance of being happy, cultivating a good mood, falling in love, pursuing your hobbies like sewing, knitting, drawing, painting, or whatever else you like. So this is the way that humans tend to naturally think. If I give you any topic, your mind naturally explodes into all directions and it starts to connect that topic to everything around that topic. It starts to connect the dots, so to say. So I want you to use that in your answers. It's a great way to think fast, and it's a great way to give meaningful answers, to give very relevant answers in a short amount of time. So if you are someone who struggles with coming up with answers, then give this a try, and I'm sure that you will definitely notice the benefits of using this method. Now, the next thing that I want you to do is I want you to use your senses. So generally speaking, you have 5 senses. So the ears, what you hear, what you see with the eyes, what you smell with the nose, what you taste with the tongue, and then your skin, what you perceive on your skin, the sensations, and so on. So I want you to use your senses to talk about your experiences. For example, if the examiner asks you, hey, can you describe a time when you went on a vacation somewhere? Well, if you were to talk about a time when you went on a vacation to, let's say, Japan, if you went to Japan, then you can tune into your senses and you can talk about the sensory experience of your vacation. So if you're talking about a time when you went to Tokyo in Japan, you can talk about what you heard. What was the sound of traffic on the streets? Was it very busy? Was it really loud? Were there a lot of horns going off? What did you see? Were there dazzling colors, buildings full of lights, traffic, cars whizzing by you? What did you feel on your skin? Was there rain? Maybe it was wet. Maybe it was really moist, really hot, or cold. Talk about the smell. What did it smell like? Perhaps you walked past a bakery and it smelled delicious of cakes and pastries and all kinds of good stuff. Or did it smell really bad? What did you taste? Perhaps you went somewhere to a great restaurant and you had the opportunity to try out authentic Japanese food. Was it good food? What did it taste like? Was it spicy? Was it hot? Was it sweet? What was that like? So I want you to engage your senses in your answers, and this is another great way to think really fast. Because you really don't have to do much thinking. The information is already there. You don't have to create something new. All you have to do is simply tune into your senses and just talk about that. So I hope that is clear for you, and what I want to do now is I want to give you an assignment so that you can put this into practice. And make sure that you do practice this, because practice is the only way that you're going to improve. So here's what I want you to do. First, I want you to create a mind map that we just talked about, this little chain reaction. Create this mind map for the following questions. So I have 2 questions for you. First, I want you to create a mind map for this question. What is your hometown like? Now, here's the thing I want you to note about this. I've said create a mind map. I don't want you to give me an answer verbally. I don't want you to say the answer. Even though this is a speaking test, I know that. But what I want you to do for this assignment is I want you to get yourself a piece of paper, a blank sheet of paper, And on that, I want you to draw the mind map. So I want you to draw your hometown in the center, or you can just write it if you like it that way. So draw it or write it however you like. And then from that, I want you to branch out and think about what are the other things that your hometown reminds you of. So maybe your hometown reminds you of the atmosphere of the city. What is the downtown like? What about the parks and the gardens? What about tourist attractions? What is special about your hometown? What do you like? What do you not like? And then I want you to branch out even further from there. And I want you to keep going for some time until you get a sense of how to create mind maps. And once you practice drawing this on a sheet of paper, it will be much easier for you to think it in your mind. So that step comes later. So first, put it down on a piece of paper, and then you can practice using a mind map without having to draw it on a sheet of paper. So do that for this question first, and then once you're done with that, I want you to then move on to the next question, which is this. Describe a place where you went for a vacation. Okay? A place where you went for a vacation. And again, I want you to do the same thing. So in the center, put that place where you went, that city or that town, wherever it was. And then from there, I want you to branch out further and further and further and keep going until you are satisfied, until you get the hang of using mind maps. It's a very powerful tool, and it's really going to help you to come up with great answers when you are speaking to your examiner. Now, once you're done with this first assignment, then I want you to move on to the second assignment. The second assignment is you have to use your senses to answer the following questions. Remember, we talked about using all 5 of your senses to describe your experience. So I want you to answer these questions. The first one is, what hobbies do you enjoy? So try to use your senses. If it's a hobby that uses your hands, such as sewing or painting, then I want you to talk about that. If it involves the sense of smell, such as with painting, you can smell the paint, then talk about what the paint smells like. How does that make you feel? What emotions do you feel? And that's another thing, guys. I don't just want you to stop at the senses. The ears, eyes, nose, taste, and touch. Those are the 5 senses, but there are also emotions. So I also want you to talk about the emotions. What do you feel? How do you feel about a certain thing? How do you feel about this hobby of yours or whatever subject we're talking about? Whether that's your hometown or whether we're talking about the vacation you had. What does that feel like? What emotions do you feel? So be sure to mention that as well. Here's the next question. Do you like your job? If you don't have a job, then if you are a student, then you can just talk about your studies, your field of study, whatever you're studying right now. Do you like it? Why or why not? Again, try to use your senses. So for this, I want you to write down your answer. Again, I know that this is for a speaking test, but I want you to write it down just in the beginning so that you can learn how to use these methods of engaging your senses and using the mind map. Once you get that down, once you've had some practice with it, then you can go ahead and simply answer the questions without having to write this down or draw this mind map. So I hope that's clear. So go ahead and do these assignments now. And once you're ready, we'll move on to the next video in which we'll talk about how to extend your answers and avoid bad starts.